So I wanted to really quickly talk about X, because with everything that's going on in the world and the way information is traveling, this report that came out last week is really, really vital context to keep in mind as these weeks go on with how this platform operates. And I say that primarily is because X is the destination of news media. It's the primary platform used by that industry in kind of all facets. Most of the time when they break stories, a lot of their traffic comes from X. A lot of the journalists discuss and are friends with other journalists on X. Of course, you have email and Instagram in some cases, but X is a vital part of that industry, because before, when it was Twitter, a better fucking name, a lot of stories broke on Twitter before everywhere else. That was a huge value prop of that whole industry. You would immediately get people's takes. Immediately, people would find out about news before you could report on it. Information traveled so fast. And look, last week, Axios did a deep dive into Twitter's usage statistics over the last year, and the numbers are down across the board. And today, Fidelity marked down the value of Twitter by 65%, a year after Musk bought it. Now, we have all heard the same kind of thing. Well, if Twitter is so bad,
why don't you leave?
People have been leaving. This is proof. Ever since Musk put the blue check marks on and bought it and all this kind of stuff happened, a lot of people were saying, well, you don't know what's going to happen. A lot of people are going to complain because they don't like Elon. That doesn't necessarily mean that. Musk would a lot of times talk about how things were the most watched somewhere and confuse impressions with engagement. There was a lot of hand-wringing about hey, this is what's happening, and Musk would deny. Well, there is definitive proof now. Monthly active users for Twitter are down by 17.8%. That is staggering. If you don't believe me, go tell anybody at a tech company, hey, the amount of people using your product has dropped by 17.8%, and let me know how they're doing after their heart attack at the hospital. For reference, just so you know, Twitter had the least amount of monthly active users compared to all of the other major kind of everyday utility social media apps. Less than Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Instagram, for example, has about 2.35 billion monthly active users with a B. And there are a lot of other troubling signs. For example, traffic to the ads portal is down by 16.5%. Something that this article doesn't mention is that a lot of the functionality of the ads portal is gone. So you can't really access certain metrics. I know this because when the Evo album was popping off, right? And because the gaming industry primarily exists on Twitter or X or whatever the fuck they call it, we couldn't access certain metrics to show to people hey, look at the engagement for these posts. Traffic from the US is said to make up about 1/4 of Twitter's full traffic, and that's dropped about 19%. Again, huge. If you work in the corporate world, 5 is bad. 5 is bad. This is 19. And if you compare year over year, which the Twitter website will tell you, oh my gosh, it's doing so well, but year over year, overall, it's trending downwards. It's lost about 11.6% of its traffic. Now, Axios and SimilarWeb, where they got this data from, will say, hey, it hasn't been a complete downward spiral. There's been ups and downs, month over month, but the overall trend line is down. Something else that's concerning that you should take a look at is TikTok. TikTok is up by 22.8% in terms of traffic. The reason that's important is because the cadence on TikTok, if you talk to many social media managers, is it's pretty much, for a lot of people, Twitter with video. Short form thoughts, news spreads very quickly on TikTok. In fact, many trends from TikTok end up bleeding into other parts of life and other places in general. And a lot of industries are moving to TikTok. Washington Post has a very robust TikTok operation. But even more so, you remember how I said the news media exists on X and everything like that? Well, places like the New York Times have lost 4% of their traffic from X because A, Musk has had a constant ongoing war tilting the scales with a lot of the media, and he removed headlines from a lot of the links that the media would post. That's fucking bad. Because even if you put the headline in your tweet, people don't know what they're clicking on, so they have less trust of clicking on a link and going off the site. Now, I will say in Twitter's defense, its desktop usage is still among the top apps, right? But on mobile, it's just so behind the pack. It's behind TikTok. It's behind fucking Snapchat. It's behind Facebook. And so what does this mean? Is Twitter dead? Why are people still there? Why is it an erosion and not an evaporation? It won't evaporate. It will slowly die. Myspace didn't just disappear overnight. It disappeared over 3 to 4 years. Did you ever see that movie Funny People with Adam Sandler and Seth Rogen? There's a giant concert that they hold for MySpace where they're like, hey, fuck Facebook. That joke was relevant at the time. MySpace wasn't doing badly, but Facebook was increasing in popularity. And now, a lot of people don't even know what the fuck MySpace was. Because the news media exists on Twitter, they see it more than everything else. And if you live only on one app, it's a bubble. And listen, if the entire industry that operates and disseminates information for everybody to read and digest exists on one platform primarily, like they touch the other platforms, but this one platform, which has been known for spreading misinformation, which has evil Tony Stark taking over, putting a thumb on the scale to whatever the fuck he wants it to be, when they're on that platform, it's going to look like the world is much more disjointed than it is because the platform is disjointed. And we are currently going through one of the most consequential events in a century with Israel, Gaza, Palestine, Hamas, Netanyahu, the mass shooting in Maine, the 2024 presidential election. And yet a lot of the content that is making the news is directly from Twitter conversation and what exists there. Twitter is eroding, partially because of design philosophy, partially because, like, if you have a platform where everybody's supposed to congregate and you kind of push your ideology like out in the open about what kind of stuff you want on your platform, the other ideology is like, why the fuck would I be here? But the blue checks aren't working. Its revenue model isn't working. And we need to stop acting like, when is Twitter going to die? It's dying. If your industry exists on the platform, by all means, split your time. But let's be very honest, there are other ways you can use your time in other platforms. I'm not going to say all of them are great because let's be honest, they're all owned by people who want your fucking information and are going to sell them to telemarketers. But there are other places to promote yourself and talk and have discussions that are a lot more fruitful than this fucking place. For example, on this channel, a lot of the things that I would tweet, I just put in the community tab. And my community tab is popping. And this is the last thing I'll say, and I'll include it. Elon Musk clearly did not know social media before he purchased it. There are things that Elon Musk actually is good at. What he did with Tesla. He didn't make the fucking cars and he did not found the company, but he did understand business-wise how to make electric cars a household name, how to build out that industry and the infrastructure for it, and he deserves credit for that. This he didn't know anything about. And to be fair, there's a lot of things he doesn't know about that he overextends himself into. And there's only so much money and a lack of knowledge will get you until everything craters. And if you don't believe me, look at all of the fucking numbers on Twitter. And after all this, if you're like, you're full of shit and you don't like Elon, listen, even if there is some bias in the news media, which I'm not going to act like there's not, numbers are numbers. They're numbers. They're not like fucking made up. They don't come out of the fucking air. The platform is bleeding. People are telling you it does not have as much value in terms of what it does for them as it used to. The fact that I can say Blue Sky, Mastodon, or Threads, and you know what it is a fucking problem. Because if I say Zynga, you don't know what it is because Facebook fucked them up. Anyway, that's my take on everything. Please, 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 please. In the next few weeks, if you're looking online for information about everything that's going on, please take the opinions on Twitter with the tiniest grain of salt and find other places to go. Because if you're feeding yourself poison thinking, okay, well, this is how the world is, I think you're kind of in a bubble. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. This is our new series called Zaid Talks. We're going to be here every so often whenever there's something to talk about. You can go check out Freestyle the News, which was brand new this last Sunday. My name is Zaid Tabani, and I'll see y'all soon. Let's go!